Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the June 17th, 2025 Post Falls City Council meeting. Shannon, please note that all council members are present. And we do have a couple of announcements tonight. City Hall and city business offices will be closed Thursday, June 19th in observance of Juneteenth. Police, fire, and rescue services for emergencies may be reached by calling 911. The police department will remain open for walk-in emergencies. For water-related emergencies, call 208-773-3517. The Parks and Recreation Department is teaming up with the Police Department for another season of Movies in the Park, kicking off with Paddington and Peru on Friday, June 27th at Tullamore Park. The movie begins at sunset, but come early to mingle and enjoy lawn games from the Yard Games trailer. This free family event is family-friendly event is sponsored by Golden West Credit Union. And we do have some staff introductions.
Good evening, Mayor Jacobson and members of City Council. So you may not have known this, but planning departments had some significant turnover here recently. We lost Paulus and Ethan to Washington. We've been to training grounds for Washington for them to snag them up. But we have had a good opportunity to get two new employees. And the reason why I'm having them introduce themselves is for you to get to know them a little bit better, as they may be before you here soon presenting some public hearings. So I'll call the first one up right now. Want to come up, Andrew?
Evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Andrew Millar. I've been a resident of the area for about 8 years, and I've been with the planning department for about 2 months. And I'm honored to serve this community that I love so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Justin Souter. It is my second week on the job, my third week in Idaho. I'm coming from Southern California, where I was a planner for 7 years. I started my career in the Mojave Desert in Palmdale, California, and then I worked in another community called Santa Clarita. I was up here visiting with my family in January, looking for places to live with no job prospects. And as I was here, I saw the job was posted, so I walked in and introduced myself to John and told him I'd be applying as soon as I got home, and now I'm here. So thanks for having me. I'm here moved up here with my wife and my 2 kids. I got 2 sons, one's 21 months old, and I got a 7-week-old. So excited to be here.
What do you do in your spare time?
Unpacking right now.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
You bet. Very good. So John was joking. We talked to get together, I don't know when it was, and he said he was going to give diplomas to the planners who had left from the Post Falls Planning Department training grounds, and I said, please send them a bill for tuition as well.
Yeah,
So.
that's fair.
Welcome aboard, both of you, and we look forward to working with you. And we understand why you moved to the area. Are there any amendments to the agenda tonight?
There are none tonight, sir.
Any declarations of conflict? Seeing none, would you please present the consent calendar?
Item A is minutes from the June 3rd, 2025 City Council meeting. Item B is accounts payable for June 4th through June 18th, 2025. Item C is Kildare Meadows Subdivision Construction Improvement Agreement. Item D is Idaho Ranch Annexation Reasoned Decision, ANNX-24-8. And item E is Idaho Ranch Annexation Agreement for ANNX-24-8. And item F is the States at Waterstone Final Plat.
Any questions on the consent calendar?
I would move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Westland,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Clue,
Aye.
Stigliter, Davis,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. You went the different direction tonight. You confused me.
Totally.
Yeah, I was
Totally
thrown
confused us.
off on that.
We do have one public hearing tonight, and we are at that public hearing. If anyone does wish to testify, there's a form on the back. Please fill it out, turn it in to Shannon. We will give you an opportunity to talk to us. So with that, I will open the public hearing, and that is the public hearing to establish a CPACE program. Shelley?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So here tonight to talk about the CPACE program. I've been here a couple of times talking about this program, but tonight we have it open as a public hearing, allowing for any public comment in regards to the program itself. Again, the Commercial Property Assessed Capital Expenditure Act is where they get the name for this, and it was adopted under Chapter 38, Title 67 in the Idaho Code on July 1st, 2024. A recap, March 18th was the first time the concept was presented to council, and then on May 6th, we received direction from council to proceed with, forward with the process. On June 3rd, a resolution of intent was adopted, and then tonight is June 17th, a public hearing, and if we are given direction to proceed forward on July 1st, a resolution to establish the program would be presented to council. House Bill 378 did the commercial property assessed clean energy part of the financing structure, in which commercial building owners borrow money for certain energy and water related projects and make repayments via an assessment on their property tax bill. House Bill 67 is the Commercial Property Assessment Capital Expenditures Act, which finances the structures in which commercial building owners borrow money for certain energy and water related projects and make repayments via an assessment on their property tax bill. So there's two sections that they can apply under. Currently, there's about 37 states and the District of Columbia having authorizing statutes. City of Coeur d'Alene was the first local government in Idaho to have a CPACE program. We also had communicated with Rexburg. They currently have a program now also. About 2,900 projects for commercially in the United States and over $400 million in financing. In essence, CPACE is a loan for qualified energy efficiency and renewable energy improvements. It's for certain projects on commercial properties. It's secured by a lien on that property, repaid over time, and it's by means of a voluntary tax assessment, so the property owner agrees to that tax assessment. The loan may include permit fees, inspection fees, lender fees, program application and administrative fees, project development and engineering fees, interest reserves, capitalized interest, and other incidental and ancillary fees or costs associated with the project itself. Long-term financing, one of the things that we heard when Coeur d'Alene was first looking at it, allows up to 30 years traditionally on the market. 20 years the normal time frame in which they allow for commercial loans. So long-term financing to make energy-related upgrades to existing buildings, to support new construction costs related to energy conservation, and to make renewal energy accessible and cost-effective to those property owners. Improvements cause the property value to increase, so there's an effect for the city to receive additional property taxes off that property. The city may assess a 1% administrative fee. Idaho Code Section 673808, energy and or water resource conservation, reduced public health costs or risk, or reduced public emergency response cost or risk. I heard one of them had to do with even response from the fire district can be considered in this. So if you had a building where you built it in such a way they could access the upper floors easier, that would be considered to be allowed for financing. Idaho Code 673808, decrease energy consumption or demand, support the production of renewable energy, decrease water consumption or increase conservation, allow for reduction or elimination of lead from the water, or increase water or wastewater resiliency. Properties that would qualify are commercial, industrial, and agricultural property, multifamily residential property, condominium property, nonprofit, charitable, or religious property. So those on nonprofit in Idaho would not increase the property tax received by the city. Potential projects, improvements to properties. One of the things that came up during the initial conversations was Buck Knives needing a new roof on their facility. Potentially could be something for this. And new projects considered were condo project and a new company looking to locate off of Northeast Highway 41. So that's at Highway 41 in Prairie. So if council does desire to proceed with the program, included in the packet are draft documents of what would be brought to you, except for the resolution itself. But the guidebook and the application and those forms are all included in a draft format for you in tonight's packet. Those would come back to July 1st along with the resolution. If council does not desire to proceed, no further action would need to be taken.
Questions of Shelley at this point before we see if anyone from the public wants to speak?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, is there any like mechanism or means of monitoring this for us? Like, is the program being used? Is there any way that we would be told like, hey, yeah, we have somebody who's applying for this? Or that's none of our business, but I'm just curious.
Oh, no, within the guidebook, we actually included that language. So when we receive an application, that information will be provided to council.
Okay.
So
Great.
it's in our documentation to do that. So it's part of our process.
Thank you.
I saw it highlighted. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was a request that came out of, I think, our first meeting, if I recall. So
Any other questions?
Was there a specific reason why we didn't use the same definitions for the eligible property as the state statute?
Look, can I ask real quick, I want to answer the question. Should we ask that now, or should I go to public comment and then close the public hearing? Is it okay?
I think you can ask it now.
Okay, good. Sorry. Didn't mean to
I'll answer
interrupt you.
that while
No,
Field
I
is
always
quickly
ask
looking.
in the wrong section, so thank you.
I didn't know if that would come under deliberations.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
I think it's appropriate to ask now. I'm just trying to.
I have so the state one, it's almost exactly the same, except that in our eligible property section, we intentionally call out multifamily real properties of 5 or more dwelling units, and it's not expressly listed in the state statute. So there's a change there, and I know that at least I had talked about the ability to be specific with what types of properties we were going to allow, and I read a lot of state statute about this, and it seems like for financing, multifamily properties are considered commercial, when in every other instance they're considered residential. I just was curious if there was a reason why we altered the definition and added multifamily to our guidebook.
So the state statute does talk about the privately owned residential property consisting of 5 or more dwelling unit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm trying to look for where in the project, are you talking about in the eligibility requirements?
Yeah, it's page 5 of our guidebook. It's the first paragraph in section 3. It just says, or multifamily real property of 5 or more dwelling units, but the state statute reads, privately owned commercial, industrial, or agricultural real property, privately owned residential real property consisting of 5 or more dwelling units, and then it goes on to talk about the nonprofit and charitable or owner-occupied or rental condominium units.
So we can certainly adjust the language in the guidebook.
Gotcha.
The guidebook's under our
Okay.
control. I know I pulled up a couple different places in the state statute, so I'd want to confirm
Oh,
where I was
sorry.
pulling those from.
It's so it's Title 67, Chapter 38, 33. section.
3803. Yeah. No,
Oh, yeah, sorry. You
I
found
got
it.
that.
Okay.
I'm just, as far as the inferences that I'm drawing from the entirety of
Sure.
of the code.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure.
And I was just curious if
that
staff had a
that's-
specific reason for altering it.
That was not a specific reason.
Okay.
Again, I think the base documents for this, we used the Rexburg base documents, and so.
From Rexburg.
Mhm.
Oh,
But
I'm
isn't it,
sorry. I didn't
Samantha,
review
isn't it
that.
mentioned, is your question that it's more specific in ours? Because from what you said, the state also includes 5 or more.
Yeah, the state doesn't specifically use the multifamily word in the
Oh, okay.
definition of and I hate to be a bug about it, but it is something that we hear about constantly up here, and if we're gonna do this, I wanna make sure that we do it in a way that is clear to our intention as possible, which is to say that we are not necessarily doing this only to promote more multifamily, which is often a concern that comes to council. And since it is a deviation from the state statute, I just wanted to bring that up to
Okay.
make sure. Yeah.
And so we used both Coeur d'Alene and Rexburg for the guidebook, so the language came out of their two guidebooks.
And I didn't review those. I'm sorry. I just
No,
looked at
that's
the
fine,
state
it's just,
statute.
I'm just, yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't change
gotcha.
eligibility, just the way it's described.
Yeah,
No.
and a quick,
Yeah.
a quick word search through the
Oh.
entire Title 67, Chapter
Yeah.
38 doesn't mention multifamily in that title. So we can certainly remove the word multifamily from the guidebook and bring that back.
But it does mention 5 or more.
Yeah, no, it is, so it is.
So it's not a deviation, it's
It's
just
not
a
a
different word.
deviation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, the definition is commercial property means privately owned residential real property consisting of 5 or more dwelling units. So
Yeah.
it's putting a word to what that means. So,
I just am trying
What
to
it is,
be
yeah.
judicious with the commentary that we hear and how we manage that. And we did decide that we're not able to make any edits to that or call out specifically what types of businesses or uses we don't get to decide that we're only going to do rain barrel
That's correct.
updates or something, right? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
As much as we like those.
As much as I like them, yeah.
So we will make that change. in
Okay.
the
Well, let's,
guidebook.
Yeah.
and
You don't have to
that
do
may
it
be
just 'cause-
fine, but after we close, let's have deliberation, let's talk about it again. Okay? Make sure everybody's on board. Any other comments? Anybody wishing to testify?
We have none.
You want to rebut anything you said?
I do not.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. So, Councilor Stigler brought up a point. Is everybody okay with removing that word, or do you have any preference?
I think matching the state statute is probably the legally safest thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it does make sense to do that. I do, however, feel like changing that to make everyone feel better isn't going to necessarily change it, because you will have someone that says you're doing multifamily and it doesn't say multifamily. So it's kind of a one way or the other. It's still allowing it, so.
And I'm fine with it. I just wanted to make sure.
Oh,
everybody
no,
was
I
doing it.
appreciate, I didn't mean to dictate
So-
what we were doing.
I do have a question about that. On any kind of discrepancy in any type of municipality guidebook, I would assume that it would default to the state statute anyway, correct?
Yeah, the state statute is the control.
Is the program.
Yeah.
And this is just a guidebook.
Gotcha.
It's just,
Kind of appearance and window dressing it improves it.
There's a lot of marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about other questions or comment?
I think we've talked it over enough in the previous meetings, but if we want to summarize, because we're in a public hearing, we have an opportunity to implement the state program, which they put in place, that gives us a revenue source and gives commercial property owners an easier way for them to arrange financing for doing improvements to their properties. The city's not involved in any of the financing. We're not lending out any taxpayer money. We just get to kind of put a stamp on it, and they make their arrangement with the bank, and then we get enough revenue from the fee that it more than covers our time involved. So it's a net positive for the city. So it sounds like a kind of a win-win for everybody.
I think it'll be interesting to see how many applications we receive on this, because as I said previously when we were discussing this, it's not a deal breaker. If someone moving a project forward, if they want to move it forward, they're going to move it forward, and this will just give them an opportunity to maybe extend the financing in one area, which can be beneficial. So.
I think there might be some confusion, because when you do read, it's up to 30 years, and that could be very attractive to someone. But if you're doing, improvements, that's going to extend it out, and it's a 20-year model. 20 years is the maximum. So I do feel there's some cumbersome angles to this.
And I think people need to be realistic about what the expectations are too. Commercial property, like any other property, is more or less a commodity. That's what the market will bear. So it's not necessarily that just because a developer makes these improvements that they're going to, get a higher property value out of it. However, I think the benefits to the city are, if there are, assuming there are real improvements in water consumption, wastewater, all that sort of stuff that will help ease the strain on our facilities for water and wastewater, and help extend the lives of those facilities. So I think it's good just for that. And as we talked about the last time around, this is basically just a financing issue that we never get involved with typically. And I don't think that our role in that has changed at this point. It's just a different financing mechanism for people to use. So with that, what's the motion to direct staff to bring back a resolution establishing a CPACE program?
I would say approving the establishment of the CPACE program and directing staff to bring back the resolution establishing the program.
So moved with the addition that we amend the definition language to match the state statute.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Sigler,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Plugh,
Aye.
Stigleiter,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Westland.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Shelley. Next item up tonight is unfinished business, returning ordinances and resolution. And the first item is the City of Post Falls Communication Plan proposal.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a project that is part of the strategic plan. And so we are bringing it forward to have a conversation about using JUB or Langdon Group to help us put together the internal and external part of the communication plan. So on December 5th, 2023, City Council received a presentation on the strategic plan itself. Fiscal year 24 staff developed an emergency communications plan and dashboard. And in fiscal year 25, we launched our new city website. That was one of the things that we wanted to have done as part of the communication plan. And this also ties in with a portion of the Citizen Handbook conversation. And in January of 2025, we implemented the mass notification system. I do think the mass notification system was very popular with the snow plowing, especially residents being able to get information on snow plowing. We're using it for press releases, public hearings, those kinds of things currently, and receiving those notifications. A number of us that are within staff tested those programs out ahead of time, and so it is receiving traction and continuing to have folks sign up for those options. The next goal after those was to develop this internal and external communication plan. This is just a copy of the strategic direction itself, going through the different goals that are in there. And so within that, it is to develop an effective and efficient policies and procedures and to improve interdepartmental communications and also to have better interdepartmental collaboration with those communications. And then when we get down to the community, it's improving the ability to tell the city's story, creating a quality engagement with the community, and improving that ease of engagement. The website and the mass notification are a piece of that. I'm not going to go through this part of the operations slide with you, but this is going back to what we presented to council back in 2023, talking about interdepartmental communications. So I put it in the packet just so you guys would see those internal, external, and emergency communication. The emergency communication plan was pretty, I would say, pretty easy to develop, thanks to Stephanie who developed that for us. She's the one that put that together. And so we do have that in place. And again, it goes back to telling our story, and this has a little bit to do with the budget conversation that we had during our workshop the last time. And council members, I remember Councilor Ziegler specifically saying that you'd like to be able to have better ability to talk about the story of the budget with our legislators and what has happened. And I think Council President Malloy also echoed that, having conversations with them about what has happened with House Bill 389 and property taxes and the budget for the city of Post Falls. Under the communications plan proposal, it's broken down into 4 areas: project management and situational assessment, and they have put a price tag with each of those, but I'll walk through what those involve here in the next few slides. And advisory group meetings, those will help specifically within the internal, but also the external, getting those stakeholders together and talking about external communication with the community and then internal communication within our departments. And then there's a communications plan deliverable, including in that is I'm going to forget what's called projects, plan on projects that help a individual determine when to and how to communicate to the public about our projects. So project management, they're going to oversee the process, maintain the documentation, provide monthly status updates to staff, conduct project planning and risk assessment, ongoing document handling, and then invoicing. So this is just kind of the back-end administrative piece of the project itself. Situational assessment, this is where they're going to actually reach out and talk to folks about exploring communication needs, challenges, and opportunities. So they'll be talking to the stakeholders. Again, this is both for internal and external communication. They will assess the existing conditions, do those stakeholder interviews themselves, and they'll develop some assumptions that they'll run by staff and provide deliverables to staff and to council. The advisory group meetings, they will explore communication needs, challenges, and opportunities with those groups, assess existing conditions, do the stakeholder interviews both on the internal and key partners that have been identified, and again, develop those assumptions and provide those deliverables. And so this goes into the actual plan and delivering it, and then also that public outreach planner. I did say it wrong earlier. And so there'll be a draft strategic communications plan that will be provided to council for review and input. And then the public outreach planner is being used currently by Idaho Falls and by Idaho Transportation Department. I also forgot to mention that we do have Brad Marshall here from JUB. So Hannah is from the Langdon Group. She's a part of JUB's arm, and she can't be here tonight, and so Brad is here. So if you do have questions for him, he is here and also available to answer questions on this proposal. But the public outreach planner helps you identify when you're going to do, for example, let's use Spokane Street project. We're going to do that Spokane Street project. We're going to be closing down some of the entrances and exits from the freeway, and then we're going to have some lane closures. So the individual in charge of that, I believe that was Jackson or Andrew. I'm not sure who was in charge of that project itself. Was it Andrew? Okay, Andrew. When Andrew was going in, he would actually go into the POP program and enter the project in there, and it would help him understand better which outreaches he would have, as press releases, social media outreach, things like that. And it would give him kind of a guide on exactly how to communicate to the public about that particular project. And so ITD has been using this. I will say that I feel as though ITD's outreach and communication has been better on their projects than they were in the past, whether that's because of this program or just because they just had an initiative to do a better quality job of reaching out to the public about their projects. I know I try to send out to you guys some of the information I receive when they're doing Highway 53, Pleasant View, Highway 41, and I-90. And they've done a decent job of getting the information out to the public about closures in those projects. They've also been doing a little bit of training videos on some of their projects down the southern part of the state. I've seen some of those. I do feel like ITD has done a better quality job. This system itself, if we decided to purchase it, would be set up with our priorities. So we would put the city's priorities and goals into the software. So when they input their project in, it's going to give them guidance. And so it's really helpful in understanding for someone who's managing a project how to better communicate to the public based on the city's priorities and goals. And I included in the packet just kind of the outline of that particular part of the project. So if council decides to provide direction to proceed, staff will work with the Langdon Group on a final agreement. A timeline will be developed. A process will kick off with a consultant, and a final plan will be presented to council. If council would like a different direction, and they could provide that tonight, and we could come back with further direction on this plan. I can take any questions.
Did you show the cost of developing this?
The total cost was $89,000.
I guess it was broken down, I think, when, okay, earlier.
Has anybody tried to put numbers to if there are any anticipated operational savings of having such a program in place? So obviously it takes time and effort from somebody to communicate what's going on in the city out. Does this provide any efficiencies that would save staff time to get that word out, and has that been quantified at all?
Are you talking about just on the POP program itself? And the value of it's about $24,000. Although they say if we were to buy that as a standalone project, it could range between $50,000 to $90,000 for that cost.
So we move forward with this $89,000 plan. Are there any savings to the city that would result from moving forward with this?
I would hope there would be operational efficiencies in communication internally. reduce some redundancy that probably exists currently. And external communication, I don't know that there'd be a cost savings. I think it's just an improvement in the level of the current service that we're providing.
Can I have an example of what you mean by improve interdepartmental communications? Like what should be an email versus what should be a meeting, or how to construct sentences? I'm a little bit, I would like just to flesh out a little bit.
I would say probably going mainly to email. And so currently, most of us use email as a way of communication. We were in a meeting the other day where a communication had gone out via email, and most of the folks hadn't read it yet and had not done the process within the email, and it was buried in the middle of the email. And so better understanding if you want to actually have people respond to a request within an email, how to identify it in the email, how to write the subject line, and then to have an agreed upon, let's say the department heads will all agree for these types of processes, it's going to be via email or it'll be file share, or how to communicate out the different processes.
So a lot of staff training for
Yes.
that aspect of it.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've had a lot of new software, the cybersecurity changes, and the bulk of our software is going to subscription software. We've had implementation of a lot of new softwares. We are still not, I would say, proficient at that. And so some of this would also be looking at those software programs and how to use them better. And so Microsoft has a lot of opportunities within it to use Planner and project planning, and the to-do list is now a part of the Microsoft app. And so you can, all of those can be interrelated. I'd say most of us are using them differently. And so to have us all have the same process and procedures so that we're trying to use those in the same manner will create efficiencies and also highlight when you need to respond and when you need to provide information back to different projects. But even if Warren and I send something out and we want to have department heads have something back to us, whether send that as a task or a planner, there's a task program and a planner program, and there are two different kinds of tasks, and how we should send that out to department heads and then follow up on it.
Okay.
And we track a lot of stuff in Excel right now, I would say that.
Other comments, questions? Joe?
So the final product, what is the final product? A new set of work instructions and policies and procedures and training? What is the final, what comes out of the $89,000?
So you're going to get a policy, both internal and external, on that. Then it would be shared on the website as to what our policies are regarding communication. And within that document would outline the different types of communication that's being used by the city. And so there's various plans out there, and they can be anywhere from 30 pages to 100 pages talking about what the communication is.
Is this for this fiscal year, or this would be part of the next budget?
This is, it could kick off this year. The budget is in this fiscal year, and I've talked with Jason because we're kind of getting late into the fiscal year, then we would be able to roll that to next year.
Do you say excuse me, you say the budget, the amount budgeted for this is in this fiscal year?
Yes.
I mean, I really like the new website. It's lovely, and it was done very well, and I like the emergency communication. I obviously think that's tremendously important. I guess if there are no more burning questions, I think it is expensive for what we would be getting, especially looking at a tight budget year. So that's my opinion on it.
I'm right there with you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Are you
No,
signaling
that's
to me
fine.
about something? Oh, okay.
There's Aaron.
It was there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. On A and B items tonight, they seem like wish list things, and we're trying to like kind of get a handle on our spending right now and revenue, and they both are great. They're great, except for the fact that I'm just really cost conscious right now as we're heading into this season where we're trying to figure out where our head and tail are at. ITD is a big organization, and I can see why they would spend money on this because they really need that. But I think a lot of this stuff is wish list stuff, and I feel like we can do a lot of this on our own with our own planning internally. Yes, it takes time, but You know, again, I'm just uncomfortable with A and B tonight because I just don't know where we stand, and these are not critical items. They're just things we'd like to add on to improve the way the city operates. That's awesome, but it's just where my head is at.
Thanks, Joe.
I'm curious what everybody else has to say.
Yeah, I would say, almost the opposite. Under the same consideration, that we are under a pretty tight budget constraint, and we continue to ask the same amount of staff or lower staff numbers to do more and more. So efforts to increase our efficiency within our own departments, while it's difficult to quantify that, I think it is a step in the right direction to continue to do more with less, which then affects our bottom line and our budget. So I think it will have the opposite effect. I think internal training, while sometimes seemingly more efficient and less costly, can be so much more cumbersome to staff that is already overburdened with what they're trying to do day to day. So having a program like this is probably a net savings compared to an internal program, and I think that's why I would be for it. Increasing in efficiencies, which is a lot of what we've talked about in many different functions of the city. This is one of them I would support.
Randy?
I'm not sold on it. I've done a lot of work with companies and kind of internal operational efficiency, and I think what it could be, what I was afraid of it being, is if you're not sure if you should be setting up a task in this program or that program, adding a third program that you have to go through that then tells you which program to use sounds like another layer of digital paperwork. And I'm afraid that could increase the burden on staff, giving them another thing to go through that's like, oh yeah, here's this other thing, I've got to fill this out. And then does it give me permission to send someone an email, or does it give me permission to, are we going to do a mailing, are we going to, like, whatever it is for public notices? And I'm inclined to think that's the sort of thing we could just look at and have our own policy for. And maybe that's just a couple page, like a 5-page policy or a 10-page policy we could write internally that says, all right, if it's these conditions, we think it's going to be a high impact public project, and these are the things that we want to be able to do. And I think that's probably a faster way to get to at least the majority of the benefit from this.
And we could do the communication plan without that POP project, which would save $24,000 off the $89,000 if we were not to do that part.
In that case, I would, I think, be in favor of doing that internally. I think our department heads probably have a pretty good handle on how they need to communicate things, and that we probably have a lot of the knowledge. A lot of the value of having a consultant come in, I think, is either if they have a lot of expertise that you don't have, or if they, if they know how to ask questions that maybe you don't know how to ask. And I think for this one, we probably are able to handle it internally, is my feeling.
Can we have the slide with the numbers? Sorry,
Oh,
before,
sure.
then we can look at it while you're chit-chatting, or while you're giving your comment. Thanks.
Right.
I would agree with Councilman Ziegler in the sense of efficiency. I mean, you think, look at a program like Teams Alone, and, you've got folks that use 3 or 4% of it. If they had proper training to be able to expand that, I think you're going to save time, energy, and ultimately money. So I think it is an efficiency thing. There's an initial investment, but long-term, I absolutely think it's worth it.
So, if I may, can I ask you a direct question?
Sure.
If you were tasked with coming up with a training schedule and material for the software, even just the ones that you use, to make sure, like you gave the example of different tasks and priorities and things like that, kind of ballpark figure, I know I'm putting you on the spot, how much time and effort do you think that would take you to do to the point of doing it internally?
We have started down that path and not gotten very far, and that's why we went to the consulting path. I'll be honest, just trying to find those extra hours are difficult. But if I had to guess, it's 100 hours probably. You're looking at a good month's worth of work. And that's if you're just working on that.
Just working on that.
Yeah.
Right.
And I might be off on that. I don't.
It's
yeah.
a tough thing to do.
It's
I
a tough
know.
thing to
Yeah.
figure out how long it's going to take. It's going through it, and we just put together a subscription software list as a example, and that is all my departments going in and adding in all their software, and that was several hours of work just putting that together and going back and getting the details on the subscription software. What date did it start? What is the annual cost? All the details to put it together in one place take time.
So kind of follow-up question on that. Do you feel, or for yourself or anyone else on our city staff that you would consider an expert in building training software programs for something specific like this?
So Doug Melvin would be the closest that we have that works in IT, and he does our software training manuals, basically, and puts those together.
But kind of speaking to the same thing, there's not a whole lot of margin in IT to
Right, and
yeah.
he doesn't do communication planning and those kinds of things. He just does the how-tos.
Thank you.
Sure.
The part I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around is the cost versus savings. We don't really have any quantified savings. And we're looking at $90,000, which is an annual FTE, fairly high level equivalent. So without any even estimate of, or even examples of, here's a communication snafu that happened internally and it cost us this much money, and this would be prevented by spending $90,000. It would make the decision a lot easier to spend $90,000. I guess is kind of my concern. I'm not saying it's not worth it. I just, there's really no numbers to put against it except for what the cost is, as opposed to what is not doing this cost us in real dollars, and what could it save us going forward.
My thought is, I'm going to agree with Aaron. I think it's great. It's a wish list item. I want to do whatever we can do to help staff be more efficient, but I would have a difficult time right now supporting additional expenditures, especially when we know we're in a tough budget year. And my thought would be, we don't want you spinning your wheels. Don't spend any more time on this if it's not approved, and then a year from now or 6 months from now say, okay, ramp it back up and tell us what we can save, or et cetera. But at this point, I would have a hard time supporting the expenditure of the funds just because of the budget situation. I realize it's going to improve efficiencies, but again, is it quantifiable? So.
I'd like to ask a specific question as well. Do you, I get the time to make the decision chart, I guess, or like the guidelines, but do you have the knowledge that the consultants are offering to actually share with the staff? Like, I mean, you write emails beautifully and so fast, and I don't know how you do it, but so you have that knowledge, or there are people in our organization that have the knowledge that we are wanting to disperse to everyone. What we're paying for is just that knowledge being organized in a way and trained. Is that accurate? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, and somebody who does this for a living, who writes these policies and procedures, and also for them to get together the stakeholders, to hear from them what they consider the challenges and the opportunities, similar to how we put together our master plans.
Gotcha.
And so it's someone who is going to take the time to put all of that data together.
Okay.
And we can put this on a shelf for a future fiscal year, or just not bring it back altogether, whatever the desire is, we're good with. And so I do know and recognize that both items are wish list items that I have before you tonight. They've been kind of on my desk for a while.
Yeah.
And
At
so
our direction.
I'm sorry, what?
At our direction.
Yeah, yes, but I mean,
We asked you to
we
do it.
kind of wanted to get it done and get the feedback from the council. When we were having the conversations about this, the budget was a little different. And so we were not anticipating kind of the last 2 fiscal years of budget and what has occurred, so.
Do we need a motion?
It would be good to provide some sort of guidance. I don't know if it needs to be a full motion, but I would prefer a motion.
And if someone's going to float a motion, if I may, would you maybe comment on whether or not you want them to put it on a shelf to be able to bring it back at a future date?
I would move that we put this to the side to direct staff to put this to the side for a bit, and to encourage them to collect examples of where miscommunications cost the taxpayers money internally. Start trying to put some quantifiable numbers to it, because I think if it becomes obvious over time that this is an even bigger problem than we thought, or this isn't as big of a problem as we thought, I think would really help us to move forward with it. So at this point, the motion would be to put it aside. Table it.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion? Roll call, please.
Malloy.
Aye.
Blue.
Aye.
Stiglater.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Westland.
Aye.
Ziegler.
Nay.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Good discussion. Next up is the City of Post Falls Citizen Handbook publication proposal.
Just transfer my comments to this.
Sure. And
Okay, but
so-
we got to let her present first.
I'm sorry. Jumped the gun.
And this was intended to be at the workshop, but we had moved that for a different reason in May. And so, again, this has been on my desk for a while. We didn't have any workshops available, so I'm doing it as a council presentation. Please feel like, interrupt me anytime you want. I know I talk fast, as I'm going through this. And for a few of you, you've heard portions of this, and then for our newer council members, they have not. And I'm calling it a citizen handbook. It's a citizen communication of some sort, and it can come in various forms. And so basically, to provide an overview of the city services provided to residents and our businesses. It helps with our strategic plan and mission of building the community, can help us with telling our story, maintains communication with the community in a proactive way, and provides for additional transparency. There are several different options. I will tell you in the background of all this, I don't think I have it in here. We do have some of our supervisors, managers, I should say, getting together and looking at a Citizens Academy. So if we do proceed forward with something like this, it could be used for that Citizens Academy. The Citizens Academy we're trying to do internally, so as that proceeds and comes forward to council, there wouldn't be a request necessarily for any money. There could be a request for money if there's food or something provided for the Citizens Academy when we have it, depending upon how it's presented to the public. But that one we are trying to do internally. So this one, we had a proposal that we sent out an RFQ. And so there's a proposal in there for a medium-sized citizen handbook, which is about 40 pages, and a proposal for a large citizen handbook. Internally, we can still look at the Park and Rec style brochure, and that's about, we were estimating 16 to 20 pages, and there was an example included. Don't use the example, there's a phone number in there that's wrong, so Jason did get that fixed. And then internally, we also talked about just a monthly explainer that could be included in the, inside the utility bill itself, or be mailed out, or just be on the website itself. And then the utility bill insert was something that we were not looking at monthly, but more like a quarterly or semi-annual basis. And still, any combination of the above is allowed. So we did provide examples to council back in March of 2024. And then in May, we had a workshop discussion. And then in February 24th, we decided to issue a scope of work. I was just trying to get this moving along and get some costs to you, so you had an idea if we did use an external consultant, what those costs would be. We only received one proposal, and so that proposal is included in tonight's packet. And then tonight, we are doing the council presentation. The medium-size proposal would be for a flipbook style handbook. That's about 40 pages. We'd reach about 22,000 households with that. The proposed cost is $20,000 to the consultant. The advantages is it's available on the city website, so it's easily accessible to folks. It's more detailed form of city services, history planning, and the use of a consultant would limit the amount of staff time that would be needed to produce this. The disadvantages are the cost to produce it. Then going to the larger size, 100-page handbook would be, again, about the same size as far as number of audiences that we're reaching, so about 22,000 household. The cost from the consultant is $38,000. There's some additional staff costs that would be in there too. I did not include that in here. That's just the cost of the consultant. Again, advantages available on city website. It's an even more detailed forum for folks, and use of a consultant would help limit that staff time. Disadvantages would be the higher cost will require more staff time, and then also if it gets too detailed, people are not going to read it. So trying to make sure that we don't get too far into the weeds. There's the, they call it the Sesame Street generation, which is my generation, where we had like 10-second sound bites, and now the younger generation's even less. And so if things are too long or too wordy, they aren't going to read them. Videos on Facebook, if it's more than 2 minutes, I'm not watching it. And I think you have the same kind of, people are not going to look at something that is too large or too cumbersome. They'll look at the executive summary. internal utility bill insert that is about 18,000 households potentially, and it's $3,000 per duplex sheet. So that gives you 2 pages basically when we send it out. The advantages are it's convenient and low cost. It's delivered directly to our customers, which may not always be our citizens, depending upon how the utility bill is set up. It produces, we can produce it more often with less staff time. Disadvantages is not everyone receives a utility bill. And then to Jason's chagrin, not all of us who get the electronic version read our utility bill or inserts when we receive them.
I do.
I try to make myself do it now because he's guilted me into it, I admit it. Park and Rec style brochure, this is similar to what Stephanie had included. This one, again, would be on the website, so about 22,000 households. And that's the original cost of $12,000 to $20,000 where if we were to mail it out and produce it. So if we do it on the website, you wouldn't have those costs. Advantages are delivered directly to the citizens if you mail it. Could be seasonal and highlight current services and events, and we had some examples of that from one of the other communities when we had our last workshop discussion where they had kind of it's sort of even like our Park and Rec brochure again, because we do a spring and a fall. And they did the same kind of thing where they had a quarterly one that was based on the seasons. Disadvantages is it's a medium to higher cost if you do the mailing, significant staff time to develop it. And when you mail it out, as we go to the post office, we see a lot of them get tossed in the garbage and don't get looked at necessarily. Internal monthly explainer, this one would be that 2-page document again. And audience depends upon how you're going to do it, if you do it as a utility bill mailer or if you just put it on the website. You can reach anywhere from 18 to 22,000 households. You could do both. Advantages, it's flexible, multiple uses. You could get rid of it off of the website if it becomes dated. You do want to make sure you keep it current though. That's the one thing is some of the times when we have a brand new website, it's great. Now, if we don't maintain and keep that website updated and great, then it becomes dated and the information becomes stale. It is short, more likely to be read, and so it's a lower cost to spread across the departments and get those departments to help put input into that monthly explainer. Disadvantages is it's not as comprehensive. It also could be tossed if you do it as a mailer. So recommendation coming out of this initially was the 40-page flip book proposal. The benefits of using a consulting firm with expertise and years of experience is it will produce a higher quality product, improve ability to tell the city's story. It limits the upfront design from staff, and it ensures the project moves forward in a timely manner. And the staff would be able to maintain and build that out as time goes on. So we are just here tonight to get some direction from council, and we will proceed forward with the direction that we receive.
So you know what Aaron thinks.
Yes. And again, we were putting these together, and I had conversations about whether to even bring these forward, considering what's going on with budgets. So.
This was Randy's kind of brainchild to start with, so I'd like to hear
I'll
from
jump
you.
in. The example handbook, that's the last thing attached. Who put that together?
Stephanie did that.
That's really good. I think that has a lot of cool things in there. Even my favorite page is the who to call in Post Falls. It's got a lot of information. It's easy to read. I think that's the kind of thing that really communicates things well. My goal when I suggested this a while ago was to improve our communication with citizens, because it's a problem that I think we've all seen, that citizens come to testify for the public hearings and they feel frustrated because they're giving their views on things, but it's not the right time for that because we're in a semi-judicial context. And so there's a lot where I think there are frustrations both on the city side and on the citizen side because we don't communicate well enough. Like, here's how you should be interacting with the government. Here's how the system works here, and here's what we're doing. And so I think that's definitely an important thing for us to be working on. I think the Citizens Academy and the website redesign both have made great strides in that direction. So that's helped, I think, alleviate some of this. My mood now is that I don't think we should be hiring an outside consultant for it. I think that's probably more expense than is justified, especially given the conversation we just had about this being a wish list item in a difficult budget year. I would like to do something like this, and maybe in the near future, maybe it's next year or something, but my kind of thoughts on how to approach it would be, instead of having a consultant come in and interview the department heads about what's important, let's just take the time that we would have spent being interviewed by the consultant and then have a workshop where we do a brainstorming session. Each department head is like, okay, you've got a page. What do you want citizens to know about what your department does? What are the common questions? What do people call you that they're angry about that's like, oh, this is why we do things. And maybe it's like, the reason you've got to move the basketball hoops is because of the snowplows, and people just don't know. That's why they feel like they're being harassed about basketball or something, but it's really because of the snowplows. So there are little things like that I think we can communicate. But I think we could do that mostly internally. And then there's a lot you can do with AI now for image generation, for infographic generation. I think we could probably do some of that in-house to play around with ChatGPT and Grok instead of hiring that out. And maybe bring in a graphic design person if we needed to. But it sounds like we might have some of the talent here. And then if we were to do anything printed, I think obviously being on the website is good. If we're to do anything printed, I really like the Parks style brochure. I think this is very well put together, and everybody I know likes this. And I think instead of mailing, and because we know, as we've talked about, when you mail something, most of them do get thrown away. We could just print a smaller number of them and have them available at City Hall, at the library, at the police department, so that people who are interested and engaged could maybe pick them up and take a look at them. And that might limit our kind of expense for things that are getting thrown away. So I think it's a good idea, but there's probably cheaper ways to approach it. And then I'm open to everybody else's idea on whether you think that's a thing to pursue now or later.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's incredibly important to educate the citizens, particularly from a history standpoint, because there's such a huge population of folks that just haven't been here very long, and I think that's important. I don't necessarily think now's the right time to invest significant funds to do that, even with the print thing. Even though not sending them out and having them set up in specific areas I think would be good, but I still feel like we're going to have an incredible amount of waste. I would probably be more willing to look primarily at an online version, because I think most people would go to the website to look for that. And even if you did a monthly focus, whether that's department or, a mix of things, I think a lot of it could be taken care of electronically. That's just my opinion.
Mr. Ziegler.
Yeah, I would agree with Councilor Davis on that. And I think especially because of the success of the new website, it's very easy to navigate and use. And so then from a cost-saving standpoint, I always kind of hesitate when it comes to printed material in this day and age, as I think most of us do. But I think maybe a traffic generator would be to have, maybe an insert or something in the Parks and Rec promoting traffic toward the website, something small like that that's less cost. At this point, I don't know if it's best for us to dedicate any outside consulting money, or even internal staff time. So it is really difficult to say, yeah, let's go for it, when I think it would be a good thing. But I do think I agree with Aaron on this one. This is a wish list one that I think is less important. I think we've already made really good strides with the updated website and a lot of the major communication points that need to get out to the citizens. So I would be comfortable with tabling this for a later date.
Mr. Malloy.
I'm going to pull an Aaron Plew here and go Control C on item A and Control V on item B. I think it's a good thing. Some of the concerns I had in the first place is, the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him throw a handbook in the garbage can. So
I hadn't heard that one.
Oh, it's not such an old one, I guess.
Okay.
But I think, if it was just my own opinion personally, I wouldn't direct staff to do anything additional on top of what they're already doing. Like it's been said before, the website improvement has been massive. We do have a museum and historical society that we can link to if people want, a history of the city and so forth. Budgets are going to be tight this year, so a great idea before it's time, perhaps. But anything that comes up in the course of staff's regular duties anyway. I said I think the improvement in communication since the dawn of the new website has been fantastic as it is, and I think we just keep proceeding down that path.
Thank you. Mr. Plew, anything else to add?
Yeah, I would just, a suggestion for when this is brought up again, because I think it should be brought up again. I really like some of Councilor Westland's ideas about how we can put it together more cost effectively. But my suggestion is just, on social media, you link to it and say, we have this new handbook. That's how you're going to promote it. And we just have it digitally available. And people that are curious can click that link. And every quarter, you repost that same thing. Hey, have you seen our citizen handbook? And I think, people are engaged on social media. And if you post it enough, they'll eventually come back to it. So I dabble in social media at our company, so.
Ms. Stigler?
Yeah, I remember when we first talked about this, and I've never liked the idea of the big, huge handbook. Sorry, Councilor Weston, but I think that you know that because we've talked about it. It seems like the goals are that we want to tell a story, which you talked about in the previous item. There are important pieces of information that we would like communicated. As residents ourselves, that are important to know when engaging in these important matters. And then to the point of the who to call, communicating resources at the city to the residents. So I think if those are the three major goals, that makes sense to me, and I think that those are worth supporting. It's 100%, it's not 100%, it's like 90% a cost thing. I don't like the recommendation of the big handbook. I also think that it's too much, to your point, the TLDR kind of idea. But my thought is something more, I really like the utility bill. I don't know who's not reading those things because I'm always interested in how much money I have to pay someone, even if it's the same every single month. So there's real estate on that paper. So my request would be that it sounds like everyone didn't want to move forward, but maybe you will when I'm done, is to put a QR code on that and have that available and that drive the traffic to maybe just a 2-page document that has that really cool infographic that you have, Shelley, about how taxes are dispersed when we get to that point, or the highlight, do the little things that we want to do, but they could be on a monthly basis. We might be able to get more little pieces of information to people. Perhaps it wouldn't take up so much staff time that it was cumbersome. If it was kind of dispersed across many departments, and then it wouldn't cost postage or physical materials until that was something that was more realizable in our budget. So if we were going to move forward with something, I would request that it was something like that. Otherwise, not at this time.
And my comments would be the same as before. I think good idea. I think a 40 or 100-page product is probably not going to be looked at. Yeah. And so something short and sweet, and I think he might be able to do that electronically. I look at my utility bill, and since it's automatically deducted, I usually just glance at pitch. So I'm one that do not read that. But again, to me, we know we're in a tough budget, and budget season. I just hate the thought of expending much money for a product like this.
And I'm going to throw one more shout out to Stephanie, because behind all of this, we keep hearing her name. Mm-hmm. She is working on some videos, and so those videos are really those 2-3 minute videos, and we'll be working with staff, and we will be rolling some of those out, which can take a little bit of the place of this also. Sure. And the QR code's a good idea for those videos, that we could link it to those. So she is continuing in the background to work on things that complement the website and help to tell the story. So she's still working on those.
Good.
I think you kind of piggyback on the idea of the QR code, which I love. It's channeling traffic toward our website. One of the things that is difficult in this, when we're talking about public or published material, is really knowing who's going to use it and who isn't, who's going to round file it. So I would suggest within that QR code idea of doing a public survey and just seeing what kind of interest we have. It's cheap and pretty quick. 2 questions, it takes you 20 seconds to fill out a survey out of a QR code, and then we'll get some better idea of how many people are even interested in having something published rather than strictly website or electronic.
So when you think about the 2 questions of would you look at something and would you prefer paper or electronic? Yeah. That makes sense.
Is this something that interests you? What medium? Digital, printed? And that would be it. Thank you.
Okay.
We would include the costs so that they also understand. That's one of the things that on surveys sometimes are not included. And so to make sure that people who are choosing the paper understand there's a cost to it.
Could it be by item and then also total cost to the city? Like, I think sometimes it's hard to understand those numbers when you're just like you're saying, like, do you want something electronic or would you rather have something printed that is like $1.25 a piece equals $22,000 to the city? Does that make sense? It's probably
I see what
yeah,
I
okay.
totally
Thanks.
understand
Sorry.
what you're saying. Yeah.
It's like on Walmart when it tells you how much an ounce it is. That's what
Yes.
I'm looking for.
So you can look at the ounce and compare it to the other product. Yes.
Exactly.
Joe?
Just one last comment is, a lot of times our asks up here end up representing a fair amount of staff time.
Fair enough.
So this is one of those situations, I think, where you guys can turn that around on us too, because part of our job as the elected representatives is to be able to interface between the city and the people. So if the first QR code is, hey, if you got any questions, contact your city councilor, I think that might be a good place to start too, because that really is a big part of our job.
Councilman Malloy, I thought you were going to say that we could come together and put together some type of a melodrama or a performance as
I mean,
mayor
interpretive
and
dance
council.
works for me too. but-
Yeah.
Matter of fact, say, please contact Councilor Davis.
How about a motion? Do you have anything else?
But I do agree, Councilor Malloy, that if you feel like this is too big of an ask, like, I'm happy to table it. Like, if it's gonna take Stephanie an extra, like, 2 weeks of time to do what we're asking, like, I don't want to ask her to do that at this time. She has important things to do. So.
We'll come back to you with
Okay,
what it would
okay.
take so that you have an opportunity. I really appreciate the feedback because that's kind of what we were looking for and where should we be focusing? And
Okay.
so understanding better on both the communications plan and on the citizen handbook, where to focus. I
So if the
appreciate the
motion-
feedback.
I'm sorry, if the motion is to ask you to bring back information at a future date, that works?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Blue,
Aye.
Stigleader,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Westland,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Malloy.
Motion passes. Thank you. And thank
Thank
you
you.
and your staff for all the time. I know you've spent a lot of time on this. We do appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Next item up is a memorandum of understanding with East Greenacres Irrigation District for Guy Road Lift Station decommissioning and Fisher Gravity Sewer Project.
It's a mouthful, isn't it?
It was.
Give me time to get my presentation set up here. All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Give Shelley here a break and you get to listen to me for a minute. Big, long title. I don't know if it warrants restating that the mayor said, but an MOU with East Greenacres related to our Guy Road Lift Station decommissioning project. Get back familiarized with our project limits here. Relaying gravity sewer line from the existing Guy Road lift station to the existing Fisher lift station. The intent behind this project is to get rid of and decommission Guy Road lift station by going slightly up Guy Road. That'll allow us to get deep enough to get rid of the station. Just some background for those who haven't seen the project in a minute. And yes, again, some of you may have already seen, but just to reiterate, 2019, our collection system master plan identified improvements needed to Guy Road lift station, as well as to accommodate future flows. In 2021, the Prairie and Idaho sewer study happened and that identified or was used to proactively plan infrastructure in this area and identified some phased improvements throughout the Fisher sewer basin. This project being one of them. And then the 2024 Guy Road feasibility study confirmed the option of decommissioning Guy Road lift station and then just constructing deep gravity sewer all the way to the new Fisher site. Here's some good construction photos of a previous unrelated project, our Howell sewer project that was in this area. Some deep sewer work, so you can see some of the protection work that's going on, which would be similar to what this MOU is referencing. The MOU with East Greenacres so establishes understanding and responsibilities of the two respective parties, referencing the 1991 crossing agreement, which, to mention, I believe you guys saw a couple months ago, Mr. Beecham here presented a similar MOU with East Greenacres for our Southeast Way project. Specifically within this project, there's a couple spots where we're looking and trying to identify any locations or any of East Greenacres infrastructure that we would need to protect. Specifically, a large 20-inch AC concrete pipe is what we've identified as the big ticket item there. And as a part of this MOU, the city would reimburse East Greenacres for the protection work. Handful of benefits, so coordination of East Greenacres protection work prior to construction, which would allow us to get in and be efficient with our construction. East Greenacres will have the opportunity at their cost to update elements of their own infrastructure within our project limits. I kind of skipped over a line there, excuse me. East Greenacres could mitigate impacts to their water system as well. During our construction, this would help them not have such a burden on their water infrastructure because things would have to be turned off during the construction season. And it also just decreases potential conflicts during construction of our project. Next steps, City and East Greenacres would review plans and provide approval prior to construction. Still continuing with design in the fall, winter 2025 we'd bid, and then construction next year. And just really quickly, I want to make sure you guys know exactly what we're talking about. I should have put a line in there, but it's the 20-inch AC line runs up Chase Road, so kind of to the right here, but perpendicular to our line. That's it. That was the last slide. I just wanted to make sure you knew where that one line was at. So, questions?
Questions of Jackson?
Great.
You need a motion to move forward.
I would move to approve the memorandum of understanding with East Greenacres Irrigation District for Guy Road Lift Station decommissioning and Fisher Gravity Sewer Project.
Second.
Motion second.
Thank you, Council.
I would add
Further
authorize-
discussion.
I would add and authorize the mayor to sign it.
And authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second still stand?
Also
Yes,
second.
second.
Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Stigliter,
Aye.
Davis,
Aye.
Westland,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Blue,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
I'm so proud of myself, and Field had to humble me.
Next item up tonight is is new business, and we have Treaty Rock right-of-way validation.
Good afternoon, Council. Chris Gabbert for the City Attorney's Office here. So what we have here is a new matter for us to discuss. There's some history with this property, and so I'm bringing it to your attention and looking for some direction from the council. So I don't have the map up here, but it's in a slide or two. So the Treaty Rock Park up the road there isn't connected to the street through a legal right-of-way. What happened was the legal status of that alleyway providing access to the park was vacated in 1991. That is, the city took an action for whatever reason, and actually I think it was before that, but the ordinance was recorded in 1991. But it basically returned the ownership of the property to the adjoining property owners. Since that time, the city has used the property and the public has used the property for access to the park. There's also an apartment complex to the west that also takes access through there. And it has become crowded with cars. There is parking from the tire shop on that property, and it impedes the city's access and ability to get cars out of the way. There is a procedure in Idaho law that allows the city to validate or consider the legal status of a roadway. It's not used very often. I've used it for highway districts in the past, but the city has the same powers. So because this status of the roadway has been used by the public for a significant length of time, and the city has spent funds to plow it and to sweep it and has kept it on its regular roster, there is a question as to whether that public right-of-way has been returned to the public use. It's sort of like an inverse adverse possession claim, but because it's the city or the entity is doing it, a public entity, the statute of limitations in which to perfect a claim is shorter. Normally it would be 20 years in Idaho to perfect a claim, but because we're an entity, it can be 5 years. So what I'm suggesting is that the city would be better served by considering the status of this alleyway, and what I'm looking for direction from the council tonight as to whether or not we can go forward with the process. I've done the background research, and so what the process will entail is we'll have a public hearing, it'll be advertised and noticed, and property owners will be sent mailers. We'll have a public hearing on it, and we'll present evidence for the council to consider whether or not the public right-of-way is validated or not. It's a nice capper on it, and it puts a definitive exclamation point on the decision. I recommend it because what it does is actually starts the clock running, and if somebody feels aggrieved by the decision, then they have 30 days in which to challenge the action, or they get forever barred. So it's a nice mechanism to affirmatively define the status of a roadway. This is my, and I don't do a lot of PowerPoint, so excuse me. This is the alleyway in question. Right here you have Compton Street on the east. That is the area in which was previously, you can see the adjoining lines have been adjusted through that. That's the area that would be under consideration. So part of the request is the council can direct a survey to be done, which I would recommend. I've spoken with our Public Works Department and John Beecham, and if we're going to take on the ownership of it, we'd recommend that it be surveyed as well, and there's costs to doing that as well. That way we have a definitive map, it shows the boundaries of the public right-of-way, and it's kind of puts that stamp on that. I don't have much more for it. Code enforcement has brought this issue to the city a number of times. I know the city has struggled with this roadway in the past. But like I said, I recommend that we move forward on the process, and again, people can testify, and if there's contrary evidence, it's fine. It's a hearing, and we can consider it at that point. I think the estimated cost from the potential surveyor would be no more than $7,000 because they feel they need to stake the property and then monument it as well for parcel identification. So with that, I would take any questions. What I'm really looking for is direction from the city. You can see on this slide, the original highlighted area shows where it was vacated. The right-of-way continues to the west, so that part was not vacated. So it really would clean up this area and provide the access to both the apartment and to our park to the south. So,
Chris, would
yes, sir.
Could this be considered a taking or eminent domain, or?
No, it's a statutory power. It's given to the city. The city is basically determining it as public right-of-way. It's not subject to a takings analysis or anything else. This is really the consideration of it. And ultimately, the question is it in the public's interest to validate and consider this roadway to be public? It has been used by the public for a number of years, as we'll present. The city has expended the funds to sweep it, maintain it, and those are the only elements that really need to be considered. But it would not subject the city to an inverse condemnation type of claim.
It makes sense to me, but.
And the issue at hand is people were not able to clear obstructions from it with code enforcement and things like that.
It does make it really tricky. This wasn't the best picture using the Google Maps. You can see it was improved at one point. But this area, a lot of the parking on the overflow from the tire shop clogs up this area. Sometimes they park semis right on there for their unloading and everything else. And to make it public right away would allow our enforcement to be a lot cleaner. It reestablishes legal access to the park. It also is like I said, we'll get into the merits on it at the actual public hearing. And we'll have some city staff present testimony as to what the benefits might be versus the warts on doing so. But it also allows a cleaner access for fire and public services to get down there to the apartments. Because if you can see, and it's not a great picture, and I apologize, it does get very narrow back there beyond this section. So there has been enforcement issues.
What other ancillary costs do you anticipate beyond the survey cost? Nothing?
No other costs. It's really just my time in putting together the staff report, presenting it to you folks, and addressing the questions.
Okay.
The public notice.
We'd have to record the
Samantha?
We don't have to buy
the reasoning
this.
decision.
We don't have to buy this land from
No.
the people that own it?
No.
Why is that?
It's because the public has been using it for access, and the city has, basically, we're perfecting the right to cross something.
Okay, and they're not requesting that we pay them for it?
No.
Okay.
As an alternative, if the city, if the city council does want to move forward with this, I will probably reach out to the property owners and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. We're going to go through this proceeding. Would you like to avoid the necessity of going through this by just allowing the city to have access? I will approach them, but I need some direction before I do that.
So the council in 91 vacated the right to this, but they did it improperly because they cut off parcels with no easement and then continued to maintain it.
Yeah, I think the city has always treated it as public right-of-way from what I can tell. I mean, we don't have records from that far back.
Right, so we don't know why that was done.
Why it was vacated in that weird fashion, I couldn't tell you, because you can see, like I said, we have public right-of-way to the east, but it's an orphan parcel. It doesn't actually connect out to this road where this picture was taken. It could have been that the tire shop and the apartment complex were one parcel at that time. I can't tell, and then they were split apart through the vacation process. Thereby, one access would give it to both. I don't know. The apartment access, if you're familiar with that intersection and everything else, the apartment could have access technically going north onto Spokane Street, but if you're familiar with the elevations there, that's not really feasible. So it's something that the apartment owner had approached us with a number of months ago, and when I started looking at it, I opted into this process just to clean it up.
And is the public hearing to determine whether it is a public right-of-way or whether we want it to be a public right-of-way?
The decision that the council will make, sorry, and I've got the statute all. And I apologize, I don't have the language in here. It's the decision is whether the establishment or reestablishment of the public right-of-way is in the city's best interest, in the public's best interest to treat it and continue to treat as right-of-way.
Okay, so we have the flexibility to look at it as in terms of do we want it? It's not just like a judicial decision about what the current status is.
It's kind of a quasi-judicial decision as to, we look at the evidence, we say the elements would be, has the city established through public use and maintenance and everything else the continued right to use it, and thereby affirmed it being public right-of-way.
Okay, and I know we had recently adopted a policy for adopting private roads, and the condition of the roadway was a big factor in whether or not we were going to take something on. Do we know anything about the condition of the roadway here? Is this original asphalt from back then?
I know that the city has kept it. I don't know the status on it. Again, I haven't, until I get direction as to move forward or not. I know that I've spoken with Ross a little bit about it. The city has had it on its surface assessment for some time. It's not in the greatest of shape,
okay.
But that could be a consideration as well. It's not a huge piece of property. It's only from this picture. This is from the roadway down to past that RV on the left, I think, because beyond that, it's already public right-of-way again.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot more to ask, but that all belongs during the hearing. It sounds like if we have a section like this and we don't know the legal status of it, we'd better clarify that.
And again, that's my recommendation, just to move forward. When it would be brought back again, we have to publish notice and send it a notice, so it's not going to be for a bit. And if the situation resolves itself, then I'll consider it dead on the vine.
I'd say there are questions that need to be answered, and the best way to do that is to put it in front of the public, so. I would move that we move forward with the Treaty Rock right-of-way validation as presented.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Who did the second?
Nathan.
Davis?
Aye.
Westland?
Aye.
Ziegler?
Aye.
Malloy?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Sigleader?
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Next up is the North Idaho Special Assistant U.S. Attorney, the SAUSA Initiative. Boy, we're just getting a wide variety tonight.
With everything. My presentation pulled up. That's not what I want. I want to be able to see my presentation.
Townships and SAUSA.
SAUSA, yeah, that's what I thought when I first heard it.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Field Harrington, City Attorney. Tonight I'm presenting on a regional public safety initiative that's very nearly completed across North Idaho. The SAUSA initiative is aimed at bolstering federal drug prosecution and trafficking and associated crimes. The program enhances our collective ability to prosecute fentanyl and drug trafficking offenses at the federal level by funding a dedicated federal prosecutor stationed here in North Idaho. So this slide summarizes the initiative's pillars. The SAUSA is a special assistant U.S. attorney, funded in part by HIDTA, the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Program, as well as cost sharing from local jurisdictions across multiple jurisdictions, and broad regional participation with cities and counties. So a SAUSA, again, is a Special Assistant United States Attorney. They will be embedded within the U.S. Attorney's Office and will focus on prosecuting federal crimes like drug trafficking, immigration violations, white-collar offenses, and will coordinate with local and state agencies. So a closer look at what a SAUSA brings to the table. First, they strengthen the operational connection between local, state, and federal systems. Enhances the U.S. Attorney's Office with the ability to prioritize and prosecute serious drug crimes in our area. They often come with extensive criminal prosecution experience and can act as a bridge between our law enforcement and the federal court system. At a structural level, again, brings a, skipped a page, excuse me. Prosecutors hired for this position will have substantial experience in complex criminal cases. It'll be a targeted position for someone already trained and has the ability to hit the ground running and begin reviewing, charging, and trying high-impact drug trafficking cases. They will focus on serious federal offenses, so especially drug trafficking, but also immigration-related offenses linked to larger operations. Crimes that often benefit from longer sentencing ranges and broader jurisdiction offered by the federal statutes. They also leverage their local insight, knowing the players, understanding the geography and the broader federal toolbox to prosecute more efficiently. Dual perspective and ensures stronger, faster, and more thorough case outcomes. A SAUSA will also help manage limited prosecutorial resources, both at the city and the county level. Regions like ours, where staffing is always light, a SAUSA can help carry that burden, relieving local prosecutors while ensuring that serious cases still get the attention that they deserve. They won't be involved in pretrial preparation, research, plea negotiations. Usually that's where the major wins are made, coming to a plea agreement, and a local SAUSA will be able to build consistent strategies for the area so that they can take on repeat offenders and traffickers moving product along the I-90 corridor. So again, just to summarize, delivers deeper collaboration, seasoned prosecutorial judgment, and a focused federal engagement.
Field. Yeah. So are they actually the prosecutors then in the court, or they just help?
It will actually be a federal prosecutor for the federal
okay,
court.
okay.
Yep. So Eastern Idaho established a program very similar to this back in 2016, operating under the same model. And since then, over 200 high-priority defendants have been federally prosecuted, removing serious offenders from the local streets. It equates to over 750 years of combined federal prison sentences demonstrating the scope and weight that federal prosecution can bring to bear in our local area. Again, it shifts the burden of prosecution and incarceration to the federal system, and so the initiative has saved the state and local systems approximately $2.5 million annually in eastern Idaho. And just as important, the SAUSA strengthens interagency intelligence sharing, helping identify trafficking routes, emerging threats, and opportunities to dismantle regional networks. So, defendants get prosecuted, federal prison time is imposed, there's a cost savings, and we get actionable intelligence to highlight the real-world impact of the SAUSA model in Idaho. So that's the sort of benchmark we're working from and that we can expect with this initiative. Some of the common acronyms: Treasure Valley Partnership, Eastern Idaho Partnership, and the HIDTA, the federal designation covering the high drug trafficking areas. This map shows the current structure with hopefully the new structure with the North Idaho SAUSA, ensuring full state coverage. So the HIDTA provides the central funding and coordination role. Congress created the HIDTA in 1988. It operates in all 50 states, including over 1,500 DEA agents, and provides expertise, funding, and operational support for local agencies combating trafficking. And these are some remarks by U.S. attorneys that reinforce the value of the SAUSA model. They understand that these just aren't local problems, they're regional and national networks, and using our communities as distribution hubs. And this initiative allows us to escalate cases that originate locally but tie into larger supply chains. Under this initiative, qualifying offenses, again, will be prosecuted in federal court, which relieves our local courts, jails, and legal budgets while increasing sentencing strength and investigatory reach. Spokane recently adopted this model too. Their SAUSA is already focusing on fentanyl, firearms trafficking, gang prosecution, and even human trafficking. And North Idaho deserves the same federal presence, especially given our regional exposure to those threats. Costs. The annual cost of this SAUSA is estimated at $140,000. The governor's office has committed $75,000 from the state of Idaho. $50,000 comes from HIDTA, and $15,000 is split among all the local partners. So breaking it down, local jurisdictions collectively pay just about 10% of the total, thanks to strong state and federal backing. And the more partners who join, the more local jurisdictions that join on, the lower that cost per partner is. So, participation. Local entities expressing interest. Of these, the only ones that have not signed on are the city of Post Falls and the county of Nez Perce. So, we are the last two to sign on to this. So again, the broad participation lowers the cost for everybody. Post Falls estimated cost share is expected to be under $3,000 per year, and no commitment is being required this fiscal year. As our contribution will begin in FY26, as they were able to get some other funding arrangements in place for the remainder of this fiscal year.
Comment?
Any questions, comments?
So SAUSA came before, I was brought into it probably 7 years ago, and it was dealing with the SAUSA for gangs. And the SAUSA down in southern Idaho was effective in prosecuting gang members, gang crimes. And we didn't have that problem up here. So it wasn't something that appealed to us at that time. So 2 years ago, former U.S. Attorney Josh Hurwitz was down in Boise, reached out, and we sat down on 2 or 3 different occasions with our police chief, with the Bonner County Sheriff, and there's a couple others, and I can't remember who they, Coeur d'Alene's attorneys, and we talked about this. And there was a couple concerns that were expressed, and that's why no action was taken at that time. First was, it is we didn't know what the cost would be. You know, they were just estimating, and they were coming to us to start this, so we didn't know what they were going to be asking us for. And if it's a federal position, why are the cities being asked to pay for any of it? It's a federal position. That was a concern. The amounts that they wanted to prosecute for, both chief of police and the sheriff from Bonner County said that we didn't see the amount or the baseline levels that they would look to prosecute. We weren't seeing that at that time. So it's, you know, they're wanting this level and we're down here. So it didn't quite meet what they were looking for. It was also interesting to note that, and I feel like I can't remember, is Kootenai County, I didn't think Kootenai County was participating in this. Are they now?
I believe Kootenai County has signed on to it. Again, the information that I had,
I don't see them on the list.
maybe, and they were not on that list.
They were not, and I found that interesting, but they were not interested, but Shoshone County was. And I think Shoshone County is the one that has kind of spearheaded this, and I believe they will house the position.
That's right.
In Shoshone County. And, but again, the concerns that were expressed, I've always liked the idea, but the concerns that were expressed by the folks that we were meeting with were federal position funded by other than federal costs. We don't know what it's going to hold in the future, but I guess if it gets too expensive in the future, we don't have to participate. The nice thing is it is federal prosecution. They will go at it more aggressively, and they will bear the costs of prosecuting those criminals. And what U.S. Attorney Josh Hurwitz told us is, he said, if it's prosecuted federally and they are convicted, they will be, and receive prison time, they will be put in a federal prison, which takes them from the local area usually and moves them to a federal prison, which provides distance between the those who are charged and sentenced and their possible contacts in the local area. So they really feel, and he was very passionate about it, that it is a good program. Like I said, I've always liked it, but I think that the questions expressed by the chief and the sheriff were legitimate. I think they've been addressed, at least to my satisfaction. Cost to start with less than $3,000. I think we should see that recovered in a minimal amount of time. So that's just my background on it, but I would support that, but it's of course council's decision.
So what happens if we say no? Will the federal government just not prosecute federal crimes committed in the city limits of Post Falls?
No, and it just reduces that cost sharing modifier for those participating jurisdictions. So, and we wouldn't have the benefit of being able to sort of refer cases over to that federal prosecutor. So, I think it's a low cost to the city that could be very beneficial. And it certainly, it is just an MOU, so it is something that we can address on a year-to-year basis and determine whether or not we want to maintain that.
I guess I still have one of the concerns that Mayor Jacobson brought up is why is there local involvement in federal crimes? If we don't pay our $3,000, but we refer somebody who's broken federal law in the city of Post Falls, and they say, no, you didn't pay your cover charge, so we're not going to prosecute? Is that how it's going to operate? Or
well, if they don't get the sort of funding to have the position ongoing, then we would just not have a federal prosecutor up here, which is what we've been operating under now.
Can you describe how the federal cases then are handled right now? Because I'm sorry, I don't know, so your question makes sense to me.
Yeah, I can't. I would have to get back to you on that. So federal case, they would, I cannot explain exactly how the federal cases would get prosecuted up here.
If I may, Field, one of the issues that they brought up was the workload or the caseload of the federal prosecutors that we currently have. It kind of goes, it adds to that, and they will want to get to it, but what does their caseload allow? This will provide an additional person to help prosecute those cases. So, again, I still have the same concern. It's federal position, but.
It's the federal government. They print all the money they want to print anyway. How come they can't just hire somebody else?
Yeah, but the theory is that it would actually provide another body up in this area to prosecute those cases, which just makes it, prosecution probably expedites prosecution, and it's on their nickel.
Because we have a federal, if a federal crime occurred here today, there is someone
Yeah, there's
somewhere.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm asking.
Yes, federal crimes would be taken care of. But again, I don't know if they bring up a special prosecutor from down south to manage those locally, or if they ship the defendant down south.
Got
Warren
it.
has a comment.
Likely more down south.
So Field didn't have the benefit of this. I sit in on some of the meetings with the mayor and Josh Herwood and the prosecutors, so I have a little bit more background on some of this than Field does. What's happening now is there is federal prosecutors who are handling federal drug crimes that happen in North Idaho, pretty obviously. There is more cases than that they can handle with the amount of staffing that they have. So what they end up having is they have a threshold. If it's not above this level, they're going to decline it and it'll be handled in the state system.
I see.
So it's just taking a look at it. I'd like to take it. I don't have the horsepower. It's not a high enough criteria for us, and so we're going to let the state system handle that. This would add one more body that would essentially allow that threshold to come down a little bit, so you're picking up more of those borderline cases that right now the federal system is saying, we don't have the horsepower for this, we're going to let the states deal with it. It will be able to bring that threshold down just a little bit, and you will divert more people out of the state system into the federal system. That's what you're getting for that investment. I share your concerns about it doesn't make a ton of sense to have a lot of local involvement. Interestingly enough, much of the funding at the state level is coming out of the Department of Corrections because it saves so much money on corrections costs and housing prisoners that it's a big investment. It's a good investment for the state to take money out of essentially paying to have someone jailed in Idaho, and paying for a prosecutor so that it diverts them into the federal system.
I see.
I don't know if that answered your question, Joe, but that was kind of the model that exists. My guess is if we don't opt in, what happens is we probably don't have access to that lower threshold because we're not involved in the SAUSA program. We probably still have access if we're hitting that higher threshold.
I get the federal government concern. My thought is that the first case that they assist with, we're going to have our return on our investment. I mean, in one case, I think it'd be taken care of. So the $3,000 to me, it's a little skin in the game.
And I think when we first started, Warren, I can't remember, but weren't they talking about us possibly kicking in $15,000 or more?
Yeah, it was a fair bit more. They've reached out a little broader. The state found more money, put more money at it, so it wasn't quite as heavily focused on local funding.
And they also, I think, went further south to Moscow and Lewiston.
Yeah, this deal looks pretty good to me. And I just went through the River City Leadership Academy program, and I saw a lot of the partnerships we have between federal, state, and local law enforcement. And I think it works really well, and we've got a lot of value from the partnerships we have there. I think it's worth maintaining that, and this couple $1,000s a year is a very low commitment to be able to bring more resources to work on these federal crimes, like drug trafficking through here, we know is a really big problem because of the transportation corridor we have, and anything we can do to get this cleaned up. And of course, immigration enforcement is a big deal these days too, and those are both very high priority things, I think, to focus on in the area. So for such a low price tag, let's do it. Let's be good partners.
Nathan?
Yeah, it's less than $300 a month.
I would agree. I think that one of the most frustrating things about helping law enforcement is hearing them say, you know, we put together a good case, or we apprehended someone and they went to court and they got out on a very low charge or sentence. So if we can get some help in that at the federal level, you know, I think we would easily recoup, you know, $3,000 in probably one case, you know, as far as the other types of resources that we would have to dedicate to catch that person again. So I would definitely be in favor of this.
For less than 50 cents a day, you can put it in federal
Wait,
prison.
there's more.
Order now, we'll give you 2 nights.
I guess I'm still not 100% comfortable with it, but I did see that we can pull out of it at any time if things go wacky, right?
Every year.
every year.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I say, not at any time, but at least on an annual basis.
Anyone float a motion?
Oh, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
If we pay 7,000, can they be housed in Post Falls instead of Shoshone County?
Unlikely.
We had that opportunity, but at the time, it didn't make sense, just because of the costs associated with it.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I think the fact that they're in Shoshone, I don't think that's going to hinder their willingness nor ability to prosecute for us.
Gotcha. Oh, okay.
I would move to move forward with the North Idaho Special Assistant U.S. Attorney Initiative.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Westland,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Plu,
Aye.
Sigleader,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Samantha, sorry I didn't go back to you
No,
for
you were
comments.
going in order, so I was just
I
gonna wait.
know,
until-
I missed. Next item up, Prairie Trail Extension, Zorros Road to State Highway 41, award of contract.
Good evening, Chris Schneider, staff engineer for the city of Post Falls, sitting in for Rob Paulus.
Chris, I want to interrupt. First presentation?
First presentation.
We're all really nice except for this guy, so so relax and we'll listen.
Should be a fairly easy one. So as you may have heard, the Prairie Trail extension, we are trying to get the final leg between Highway 41 and Zorros completed. You can see that we have the continuation on the east side with the Prairie Trail undercrossing in 2026 plan to continue this trail network to give better connection throughout the city. There is an existing excavation that was done on that site that needs to get remedied, so we hired Welsh Comer and Associates with Budinger and Associates to do a geotechnical analysis and create construction plans for us in order to remedy this and get the trail in place. We were approved for bids in May 2025 to fill the excavation and construct said trail. Bids went out in June 6th. The engineer's estimate was for $368,925, for which we got 7 bids ranging between $152,000 and $510,000. The bids were reviewed by Welsh Comer and Associates, with the lowest responsive bidder being Northwest Landworks at $152,370. So our recommendation is to award them the bid with a 15% contingency, taking it to $175,225.50 to be funded by multimodal impact fees.
Chris, do we have any past dealings with the contractor?
We have no history with Northwest Landworks, for good or bad.
It's always interesting to me when you see the vast difference in low and high bid.
That's the biggest one we've seen.
Yep.
Yeah.
There were a number of bids in the mid 200,000s to low 200,000s, but this was the lowest bid.
By law, are we required to take the lowest bid?
Yes.
And it met the requirements, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I love it. I move to approve the Prairie Trail Extension, Zorros Road, the State Highway 41 award of contract as presented.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Shannon, please take the roll.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Plu,
Aye.
Sigleader,
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Westland.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thanks. Thanks, Chris. Nice job. Citizens' comments. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council on a non-agenda item. Anyone wishes to speak, come forward. I'm not seeing anybody rush to the dais. Or is that a podium? So the next item up tonight would be administrative staff reports, and we have miscellaneous project updates. Oh, Shelley, you're back for the 4th time.
Evening, yes. How are you, Mayor and Council?
Oh, we're just dandy.
Mr.
So
Mayor, can we have
tonight,
just like a 1-minute recess?
Sure.
Okay.
Second.
We're in recess.
Sorry.
Hold that thought.
It wasn't for me.
Thank you. Call the meeting back to order. Shelley?
Did you call a recess because you have lots of questions for me? Or- So we have a couple different projects that are going on, and we just wanted to bring an update, make sure they're on the record for everybody. The first one has to do with the Park and Rec Department recruitment timeline. Especially wanted this in the record so the public is starting to understand that we'll be sending out recruitment soon on this position. So in February 19th, 2025, City Council had a workshop discussion on the replacement of our Park and Rec Director who's retiring at the end of the year. On March 4th, a Prothman contract was approved, so they will handle the main focus of the recruitment for us. On May 21st, Prothman had a meeting with our Park and Rec managers and just kind of took stakeholder information from them. May 27th, the Park and Rec Commission meeting, Warren attended that and presented to the Park and Rec Commission questions from them. June 4th, Prothman met with the Park and Rec managers. Should have been supervisors, sorry. Met with the managers on the May one. The Prothman meeting on June 4th was with the Park and Rec supervisors. And then between June 9th and 20th, they're developing the recruitment material and working with HR on that. And June 17th, we're doing our update. On June 23rd this is all draft in it, but it's draft guidelines. They plan to post the position and start advertising, so the recruitment material will be shared with council and staff also. And then on June 24th, Warren and Janet will attend the Park and Rec staff meeting and talk to the staff members. That date is the day after the posting of the position. We may actually flip that so that they can talk to them first, but this is just going off the guideline we were provided. The right now projected closing date will be for August 10th of 2025. And then the week of August 11th and 18th, Prothman will screen and winnow down the applicants. So we will not see who applies for this position. We won't know until they actually have it down to that about 5 to 10 at the most applicants. I don't expect it to be that high on that end. It's likely more about 5 to 6 positions will make it to the final applicants. And then the week of August 25th to 29th, Prothman will meet and discuss the final applicants with staff. Week of September 8th through the 12th, there'll be a final interview process with those final applicants. And then sometime between September 16th to October 7th, there'll be an executive session planned with council to talk about a recommendation potentially for someone to fill that position. If that does not occur, then we will initiate a secondary process with recruitment for the position. If on September 16th, the executive session with council is positive, then a finalized contract would come on October 7th, 2025. And the the start date that we're planning for is November 3rd. It also depends upon where this individual lives and the type of notification they need to give as to what that final start date is. That's just our goal. Dave will be with us through the end of the year. He has told us that if there are issues that he can stay, for a few weeks later into the beginning of the calendar year for us. Any questions on the Park and Rec process? Okay, long-range financial plan. So February 19th, again, City Council had the workshop discussion on the long-range financial plan. March 4th, the FCS contract was approved. And currently, Jason and I have been working with FCS Group to get them the information they need. So Jason's getting information from department heads and forwarding that onto FCS Group. We had a meeting on Friday of last week again. They're estimating a July 2025 for a draft forecast and plan to be sent to Jason and I for review and then to go to the department heads for further review. July to August, FCS Group will meet with city staff and go over their findings, their assumptions, and the information included in the plan, allow us to tailor basically the plan to Post Falls. There are things that they will base on projections based on like the last 5 to 10 years. Some of the times that's not the best. We had a pandemic that happened in the last 5 to 10 years. So those processes aren't as smooth as they would have been if we would have been working on this prior to the pandemic. And then September to October, revenue options and final reports will be brought to council. So Right now, they're planning to have 3 options available to council to kind of choose basically what direction they want to head with the recommendations with the long-range financial plan. Again, there'll be like a 10-year forecast for you to look at. And we're hoping to use then that information to help make 27's budget. Will be the first kickoff budget with this long-range financial plan. We'll be in fiscal year 26 at the time. So fiscal year 26 will start October 1st.
Is there any way for us to get, even if it's draft data from this, to influence our decisions for the budget this year?
Potentially. In July, we likely will see something like that. July 15th right now is the workshop that you will hold on additional budget updates. And so we might have something by then. I wouldn't necessarily count on it. And then I think within the schedule, Warren, there's a workshop prior to the actual public hearing in August also. I don't remember which date that is, if it's the first meeting in August or the second.
I don't remember which one.
But we'll likely have, something in the August for sure for you to at least look at.
Okay. If we could get anything from this, even if it's just a draft, and we can say, we're not going to hold you to it, just if it's a tool and extra data for us to make good decisions this year, I think that would be great.
Sure, we can try to do that. And I'll let Robert know also that we're looking for that. CityLink updates. So in October 2024, a draft joint powers agreement had been presented to the city. A few of us were at a meeting where that was presented. October 11th, 2024, there was a CityLink ride-along that was allowed. I know that Councilor Westland attended that. Community Director Bob Seal was on there. I was on there. Don't remember if we had others present or not. I think that was it from the city side. October 23rd, there was a town hall held at Kootenai County talking about public transit, and more additional information was provided at that time. November 5th, the City of Post Falls approved their agreement for fiscal year 25 CityLink agreement. And on March 18th, Chad Engel from CityLink came and presented to Post Falls City Council. And on April 2nd, a financial methodology subcommittee was established. And this subcommittee is staff from Hayden, Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, and Rathdrum. Rathdrum is attending. They're not directly affected right now, but they've been attending these meetings. No, they haven't. It's not Rathdrum. I can't remember who my other
Tribe?
city is. Dalton. Sorry, it's Dalton.
Is the tribe involved at all?
And the tribe has been attending these meetings. And it was to look at how the, currently we're doing the breakdown of how we're going to pay based on population, but it really has developed more into what are the options for CityLink as far as funding it as a program. Kootenai County has stated that they would like to have the cities either have a joint powers agreement or take over the administration of this. It's the recommendation from Kootenai County for it to be joint powers because you're eligible for more grant dollars to pay for some of the administrative costs that they are currently not being reimbursed for. And so that's HR, legal, their finance staff that's doing the auditing work over the grants. And it's my understanding they're also not billing out the portion for ICRIMP for the program. Sounds like that is something that likely that could change. So the group has been meeting. May 5th was their first meeting. They discussed some of the potential options and developed a list of questions that were sent to Commissioner Matari. And those questions were based on that joint powers agreement concept. On June 3rd, the committee met with Commissioner Matari, went over the questions. He'd run those by the commission, so they've seen them. And we are continuing to explore those options, getting additional information. I now know more about CityLink than I've ever known and how the grants work and the administration of the fixed route versus the paratransit and everything that goes on with that. It's kind of our understanding that the county wants to step away from this. I watched a meeting today, and they approved 3 things with CityLink, and it was only based on the fact that they believe potential solutions are going to come forward to where they'll no longer be the overseeing entity for CityLink. And so that seems to be the request and intention. We're trying to have a schedule, we're trying to schedule a follow-up meeting for June or July for the subcommittee. And once we have gone over all the additional information that we've gathered on these questions, then we'll come back to our individual councils and have conversations. So I just there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. I wanted to make everybody aware of what's going on. And so right now it's still being discussed, and hopefully we'll have some good recommendations going forward.
Do you recall what our annual contribution per year is to this program? Approximately?
I'd say it's about 40,000.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah. And it's been going up 3% per year has been the amount that it has been increasing each year for the last few years. They came forward about 4 years ago with a significant increase and then kind of backtracked from that.
Yeah. It was just an assumed, you will do it. No, it won't.
And what I want to say is the tribe has been extremely supportive through this process. But I do feel like everybody in this meeting just wants to make everything work. Everybody from the CityLink staff to the members that are in attendance from the
Kootenai
various
Health,
cities.
talked with them, they want to make sure it continues as well.
And Northwest Specialty also. So we received word from them that they are supportive of the program and wants to continue to see it. So I think everybody's supportive. It's just coming up with a solution that works.
If the county pulls out and the cities just manage it themselves, and we have access to new grants, how realistic is it to think we could reduce our own cost burden? Has that come up? Have we talked about that?
So potentially, it would depend upon how the numbers run out, and right now there's some costs that could be billed to the grant. It sounds like they aren't, and so we just need to evaluate the overall cost structure and what the costs are going to be. There also is the opposite that could occur, because going to a JPA, we've heard that ICRIMP, for example, would increase their rating of CityLink and what it costs. Right now there's a specific allocation within the budget for the Kootenai County that is specific to CityLink, and they're saying as a standalone JPA that cost may increase. I did talk to KMPO the other day, and his costs are fairly minimal with ICRIMP. So we would just need to gather all that data, but that information would come back as far as what the estimated costs are. The good news is on those grants are currently under the current administration planned. There's been some federal grants that have been pulled back. These grants are not. They are within the current administration's recommendation for funding. So not to say federal grants can't ever be removed. They can, but currently these are not planned to be reduced or changed.
It's a reasonable assumption then.
Yes. Parade updates. So the parade came forward. The original conversation was May 7th, 2024. I forgot to mention also the memo on CityLink had the wrong year on the October dates. It was updated in the PowerPoint, but not in the memo. So inside the packet itself, those dates reflected October 2025, not 2024. Parade updates. May 7th, 2024, City Council received a presentation on parade support. March 4th, 2025, the staff had brought forward a draft parade ordinance and presented that to council. There was feedback from the community ambassadors that they would like to see changes to that ordinance. On March 18th, I met with the community ambassadors and went over the structure of the parade ordinance and talked about doing something similar to what Coeur d'Alene does with their downtown association, their chamber, and having an MOU that lays over the top of the parade ordinance. So we went over what that would look like, had concurrence with the community ambassadors that would be workable for them, and agreed that the current parade for July 12th, 2025 would occur under the current rules. They've already submitted their special event permit, and received a sponsorship opportunity that we set up with them for ICCU to help sponsor the parade. And so right now what we're looking at is the council would receive an updated ordinance sometime this fall, and that would have a companion MOU to go with it. And that MOU currently it's in legal. Legal will draft that, and we'll run it by the community ambassadors before we bring it here. Post Falls Historical Society. So it's a nonprofit organization. They have an existing license to use the Chapin building for no fee. Right now, the purpose for that is for a museum. The building is to be cared for by the Post Falls Historical Society, and the license duration is under the city's discretion. We established quarterly meetings with them. This has been a few years ago. I tried to look at the specific date when we established that and could not find it. In fiscal year 23, mold was discovered in the basement of that building, and Post Falls Historical Society hired a contractor to perform mold cleanup. And on October 17th, 2023, there was a city council workshop that predates everybody except Joe, I think. No, Nathan, you were here? You were here, yes. Had a conversation about the license agreement and what Post Falls Historical Society would provide in basically for use of that building for free, what they would provide to the community. And we've been having conversations with them since on what that license agreement might look like with updates. In fall of 2023, we did replace the HVAC system for $30,000, and that was a budgeted expense. So that's, from our perspective, the major maintenance programs like that would belong to the owner of the building. May 5th, city initiated a Chapin building condition report that was sent to the Post Falls Historical Society, and that was performed by BC engineers. We are still continuing to work with them on the mold and water mitigation issues, and so they have installed new gutters, and that happened this year. And then May of 2025, the city installed a dry well. That said, there's still issues with water in that lawn area by the building. So right now we're trying to keep it diverted from the building. There has been a water leak that has been going on there since this building was built, and we've had guys out there on a weekend trying to figure it out with certain equipment, and they've done several testing and diggings over there. They did install some additional rock over there at one point, or gravel also, to try to mitigate it. That did not help, and so we're doing what we can to try to divert the water, but there's still a water issue that exists, and it's not from lack of trying to figure out what's causing the water. It definitely is a problem, and at some point it may be discovered, and we'll continue to try to figure it out. But it is still an issue for that building. We're also continuing to work on the license agreement. There is a request from the Post Falls Historical Society for the city to take on more maintenance responsibilities. This goes back, I feel like this is the theme of tonight from being up here. We're kind of waiting for the long-range financial plan to come forward before we make any kind of recommendations to council on changes to the license agreement, because it would require more money and more staff time to do what is being requested from the society. So our recommendations will come with the fiscal year 27 budget process. Any questions on all that?
Got a lot of stuff going on.
We do, and we'll probably, Warren, I've talked about this, maybe he and I'll trade, but start doing some of these just little short staff reports so you guys are aware of kind of what's going on in the background with these projects. So when they do come forward to you, you have better background in why we're making the request we're making.
I appreciate the fact that you're letting us know when these things were brought forward, so we have a reference point.
Yeah.
Comments?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mayor and council comments. As they say every year, school's out. Kids are in the streets. Please drive safely. The boat launch is going to open soon, I believe.
This weekend, right?
This weekend, maybe. And it seems like every year we have an accident down at Corbin Park. The water's still cold. The water's still moving. It's dangerous. Please, I don't care if you're kids or adults, if you're in the water, please be careful. Let's see if we can get a year without a drowning. It's just, there's so much water here, and it's so easy for that to happen. So please be careful. But again, more importantly, I think watch your kids as you're driving around, because kids are kids, and they don't like pushing the buttons to cross the streets, and they'll pull out in front of you. Saw two kids today up at a golf course running around on the little mini bikes. They were just having the time of their life. No helmets, and not doing any damage, but I thought, gosh, I hope no one hits them. So please be careful. Council comments. Next motion is?
Go home.
No executive session.
No executive session tonight. So we've got a motion and someone a second just for?
Second.
Second, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, thanks.